Yeah. Okay. So group conflict. Okay. It's a natural, normal part of groups. You should expect that every group you're in is going to have conflict. It is not a sign of a bad group. I think early on, people think, oh my gosh, this group has so much conflict. Is something wrong? It's normal. Doesn't mean there isn't bad conflict in the group, but conflict is always going to be part of a group, okay? Sources of conflict can come from structure, if there's competition over scarce resources, if you're waiting for others to do the work for you, and then we have the in-group, out-group effect of us versus them. We will talk about this in my job attitudes, because I think this is really interesting. In-group versus out-group effect is normal. If there's a we, there's a they, and lots of bad things happen about it. I don't have time to talk about it now. We can talk about it in class if you want to, because it's certainly more interesting that way. But it's good for the group cohesion, but it's a conflict with the other group. Okay. People can also, I'm not going to be naive. Sometimes you don't like people, and so that can be a source of conflict. Okay, it could be a personal tendency that you are, let's go back to, I would say high, the big five, you're high in conscientiousness and they're low in conscientiousness. You're high in neuroticism and you want to get things done, and they're low in neuroticism and they're plodding along. Examples in my house, perhaps. I'm calling on my son that time. Okay, personal tendencies, age. I actually don't believe this. I don't believe that generational differences, Gen Z and okay boomer. We have that saying in our house. We also have, you have a lot of saying. So, and then, yeah, I like okay boomer. I'm not a boomer, I'm Gen X. So, and then understanding, so age, I think also, I don't believe in generational differences. I just don't. We can talk about that. But understanding that conflict happens, I think the older you get, the more you're like, yeah, this is just normal. As one of my old bosses used to say, the role of your enemy will be today played by X. And so we would kind of laugh about your nemesis. The role of your nemesis today will be played by Karen. So yeah, you just understand that happens. So here's what I like. So we know it happens. It's normal. So what can we do about it? Okay, so there's two types of conflict, task and interpersonal conflict, and they're positively correlated. The more task conflict, that's squabbling over what we should do and how we should do it. And interpersonal conflict, Nancy's driving me crazy. Okay, that's interpersonal conflict. Oh, that person is such a jerk. They always are doing stupid. They always annoy me. I can't believe that's interpersonal conflict. They're positively correlated. All right. The more you start now this, and they're separate, but the more you start fighting about how you should do it, the more the people on the team start annoying you. Okay, that's weird. That's normal, but it's weird. The problem is task conflict is really good. Discussions about how you should do it, how you should do something are really good. I had this with my TA a couple of weeks ago. He wanted to add something. I was like, oh my gosh, no, that doesn't make any sense. You're, and then we discussed it. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. And we came to an agreement. But even then, and interpersonal conflict is bad. He was starting to annoy me. And the more interpersonal conflict you have, the worse it is for the group. So here's the dilemma. Fighting about what to do causes you to get annoyed with your teammates. But fighting about what to do for the project is good. Getting annoyed with your teammates is bad. Okay. So how can something be good and bad for something at the same time? It seems like it would just like make it, they would metal out, right? Well, here's the scoop. Like the sound effects. What? It's moderated by intra-group trust. That's why I said you've got to focus on the social and the cohesion. You've got to make sure people like each other. Okay. The more the group trusts each other, the weaker the relationship is between task and interpersonal. Because, if you trust somebody, like my TA, and we're getting task conflict. I'm like, oh, what do you want to do it this way instead of that way? I don't understand what's that going to add. Like, but I know you want the best for the group. I know you want the best for the product. Okay, let me think about this. I'm like, let's talk. Oh yeah, that is a really good idea. Okay, so here's a little graphic. If you have low trust, any sort of what is this? Productivity bad? I don't know what this is. Or low trust. If you have low trust, then there's a strong relationship between, we'll call this task conflict and interpersonal conflict and trust. You know, so it's, you know, you don't trust them. They start talking. You just think they're an idiot, right? They solve the world problems. If they're a freaking idiot, why would you listen to them? Over here, you really trust them. I think actually that line should be much further down. Should probably just start right here. You have a discussion with them and you're like, okay, that's annoying. I want to do it this way. Why do you want to do it that way? But they're like, oh, but I trust you. I know you're on the same side. We're trying to do this together. Let's figure this out. And it ends up being really good. Okay. And sometimes I've even found that with really good groups where I have really high trust between them, the task conflict doesn't even feel arousing at all. We're just shouting out ideas, thinking of things, and it's not even any relationship at all to not liking them. So if I really, really like my group, if I really trust them, then all the conflict in the world about the task has no effect except let's get the best thing we can. And that's what you're trying to work for. Isn't that kind of interesting? Group conflict outcomes. That actually increases motivation, can stimulate creativity, particularly if there is a small group of people. It's not just one person, but a small group of people, and they could be minorities as a small group, or they can be different from the majority. So you can have the women, the men, or, you know, black and white, or simply just two people joined together. This really stimulates when there's a couple of people together saying, no, we think it should be this way. And the everybody in the whole group is trying to figure out how the best ideas are, because it causes people to really work through what they're doing, what's the good about it and what's bad about it, and really understand the problem. So it can really stimulate creativity and positive outcomes. If you have a couple of people, it's not just one, couple of people together working through and everybody's participating, I think that's really interesting. It really improves the quality of decisions, like for sure. It, of course, decreases cohesiveness and communication, unless you work on that. And you should work on that. So group decision-making, two important group outcomes are group decision-making, productivity, and this. All right, so here's the problem. It's good. Decision-making draws from many perspectives. It gets buy-in from everybody. The decision's highly analyzed. We just used that example earlier. A bad thing is it's very slow because of process loss, okay? You can actually you can write a paper faster on your own than a group paper can write it. But a group paper is going to be better if everybody is involved in contributing and working on getting the best outcome. That's just how it works. I know, but that's how it works. Group conflict is going to be there. You're going to have polarization. You end up in extreme things. I'm not even going to talk about that. And then groupthink. And we're going to have a video on the challenger, which I think is really good. And groupthink is where groups make a bad choice even when they knew it was a bad choice. All right, so you can make a bad choice, but at the time you thought it was the best choice. Everybody in the group thought it's a bad choice. Well, that was just the wrong timing. You didn't have enough information. I'm not sure the group did a bad thing. All right, does that make sense? A group can make a bad choice when it was at the time the best choice they had, and it turned out just to be like wrong. But there's something different. Groupthink is when the groups make a really bad choice and some of the people knew it was a really bad choice. That's bad. That's bad. We don't want that to happen at all. That's called groupthink. There's some research about whether it actually happens or not, but that's okay. I'm going to show you a video on that. And yeah, all right.